I've been meaning to do this for a little while to kind of run down what makes a decently good backplate and wing for recreational diving. So let me give you some basic ideas of how to go about it. Okay, first things first, the backplate itself. This specifically is a heavier plate. I believe it's either 6 or 8 pounds. It's a stainless steel, regular old, I think it's 3 mil thick stainless steel. Good stuff, easy, balanced weight. 90% of the time, if you're using aluminum 80, it's going to throw your balance off as you're breathing it down. So as your buoyancy characteristics change, having a large center of mass over your back to counterbalance that certainly helps out a lot. A lot of newer BCs are going to aluminum or weird exotic shapes to try to reduce material to make them lighter, but for recreational single tank diving, lighter is not what you need for a backplate unless you are like a rock. Moving on to what I like to use for the rest of it. Single piece of 15-foot webbing, central grommet in the middle. That's all you need. I do like to use a chest strap to make sure it's a little bit more secure, but other than that, I just use a single piece of webbing. I don't like to play around with the other additional accoutrements. As far as everything that's going as far for accessories, I keep a little bungee right here just so this hose stays in the right place. I have a slightly larger bungee here so I could get it above my head without too much trouble. And I really like the way that holds with one of these new neon 2-inch belt slides. I only have one D-ring on this side because I'm not staging bottles or doing anything particular. This is going to hold my SPG, and that's really about it. Moving on to the other side, this will be the diver's right side. I have 2 D-rings here. This one here, a lot of times I'll affix my Octo with a breakaway. I'll show you that actually. As opposed to using a regular Octo holder, I'll have something that clips on like this with a little bit of bungee, so it can be pulled free if somebody needs it in an emergency, but at the same time I can affix it cleanly on my rig if I'm doing a shorter hose configuration. Below that we have another larger D-ring right here, and most importantly another 2-inch nylon slider with another loop of bungee. I really like to do that, so anytime I have a light, when I'm stowing it, it'll keep it secure. Moving on down, I don't really use a lot of weight pockets when I'm in the water, when I'm diving steel, so it's not so much consideration. That being said, I do keep them on here if I'm in a class or something. Having extra weight's never a bad idea when you have new students that don't have good buoyancy and can tend to rocket to the surface. So just because of that, I still have these on here. Again, if it was just me diving for myself in a recreational setting like in the Caribbean or anywhere else that doesn't require a ton of exposure protection, I would not even have these on the rig. But if you do need weight, that's the way I like to rig them. I went ahead and used a little bit of paracord to secure these in place so they don't get floppy, and then I used a combination of a larger belt slide and a smaller belt slide to kind of lock that one in place. The other side's something similar, but there's a little bit more webbing there, so I wasn't having to worry about it as much because I'm running it through twice because of the buckle. Still went ahead and used a little bit of paracord to secure it. Sometime earlier I did add another hole to this specific backplate and wing so it would line up with this, but it's not necessary to do that. Moving on down, we have just a regular old-fashioned crotch strap. I like to do this where I have a detached point and a loop, so if you have this loop anywhere on and you forget to do your crotch strap on a boat, well, it's already on your rig, so you can just snap it without having to rethink about it too much. Moving on down to the butt plate. The butt plate itself just has some basic storage stuff, wet notes, extra mask, other things like that. Nothing too crazy. A lot of times if you really want to stay clean with your rig, you can keep your DSNB in here and it will definitely stay out of your way throughout the dive. I go ahead and shorten anything that can catch. So for the over pressure valves, I keep the actual pulls for those pretty tight. Moving on to the back, nothing too crazy here. I keep a loop of paracord to kind of figure out where I like my tank and just kind of keep it there. This specific BDC has a pull to dump. I don't love that, but I'm letting somebody borrow this that is a little bit more recreationally inclined, so I'm going to keep that on there for now. But normally I have a normal elbow. That's it. I keep a single plate adapter on here just because it's a little bit of extra weight centered where I want it, as opposed to having it in a lot of extra places. I have a belt buckle, it's a cam buckle here, and this one's just plastic because I actually just ran out. Other than that, everything else is really straightforward. Standard inflator. I don't play with the fancy stuff. Nothing really crazy there. I prefer these OxyCheck style single tank wings, or they really do a good job at distributing it really well and staying just a really good form factor and staying out of your way. They don't taco, they don't get flappy. They do pretty well. The only downside to this is it has virtually no lift. So again, if you're going to start overweighting any of these rigs with a 6-pound backplate, another like what 4 or 3 pounds for the single tank adapter, then you know your other stuff on here that's adding a little bit of weight each time you go, and then you go with the steel tank. These can be a little anemic when you want to hammer on this on the surface and get a little bit more floaty. But other than that, in the water, it doesn't really make too much of a difference, unless you're trying to like pull somebody up that's really negative. That might be a problem, but it's not something I really run into. Anyway, that's kind of how I like to set this up. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complicated. Simple works.